Okay, thank you so much for joining. So I see some new names. So hopefully those new names are on our WhatsApp group. But if you're here tonight and not on our WhatsApp group, if you send me up a chat, you can send it privately or you put it on the group just with your number, then we can add you to the WhatsApp group. So then you will have a reminder every week for those of us, like all of us, that need to be reminded about life. All right, so we are continuing our challenge of various tips and thoughts and perspectives on this awesome thing called going out. And, you know, with all those challenges therein. So one point, again, this is random, and I don't know who I'm talking to, and I know there's various ages and stages, so if this isn't relevant to you, it might be relevant to a friend, and you'll feel free to share it with them. So if you're in the point in your life when your parents are doing the research and all that great stuff, it's worthwhile to tell your parents, don't tell me anything about it until the other side says yes. And of course, there's always that curiosity, like, are they doing anything? Are they doing anything? Because you're sure they're doing nothing. I have children of that age and stage. I know they think I'm doing nothing. But it's just so much better for you not to have to know all the things they're doing, because there's a lot of disappointments. There's a lot of emotional roller coasters. There's a lot of distractions. And someone has to deal with it, but it's far better if it doesn't have to be you. So once the other side says yes, then you get to get it all given to you on a silver platter. Are you interested or not? Beautiful. That's when you should get involved. And if you can have such an arrangement, you're very fortunate. I know we want to know, but you're really much more fortunate if you don't need to know until it's already done, because it could take a long time and a lot of disappointments along the way. I've said many times, I just want to reiterate this point. I know we've mentioned it before, but when you are looking at someone prospectively, your focus always should be on building. We're building something together, right? The bracha that you're given limitless times when you get married is for a binyan adei ad, which we translate colloquially as the everlasting edifice, a building. What are you building in your marriage? You're building each other. You're building children. You're building family. And as I know we've said, but it's worth repeating, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a builder. You're looking for a builder for a husband, a builder for a father. You're not looking for a cool, great, awesome boyfriend. That's not what this is all about at all. As we've said, going out's not fun. So when you're looking at your list, because you probably have a list, it might be in your mind, it's not bad to put it on paper. When you're looking at your list, it would be nice to sort of strategically separate the qualities that are good for the builder, the qualities that are helping one be that awesome builder, and the perks. It's not bad to get perks. You know, you appreciate a sense of humor, whatever, you know, not bad. We all want lots and lots and lots of perks on the wish list. But it's really good to discriminate what's really important, what's necessary for husband and father, and what's nice. Why is that important? Because sometimes, like I had an hour and a half conversation with someone last night about this, you're going out with someone and he's truly wonderful. He's almost everything on your list, but there's two things that really bother you. But if you already knew in your head that those two things are on the perks side, okay, I mean, it would be nice and you wanted it. So of course, as this girl said to me countless times, I mean, I've had countless conversations with her about it. It's coming to a head. This was like an hour and a half last night. It was like, so why can't I have everything? Why should I just wait? And somebody else will come along who has everything he has, plus these other two issues. I'm like, listen, you know, you could choose to decide that person exists. But right now, when you have someone that has everything that makes a builder, everything for the father you need, for the husband you need. And yes, there are some things he's missing, because guess what? He's human and everyone's flawed and you are too. But as long as you know which side of the list they're on, you should be able to say, okay, so I wasn't supposed to get this perk. So that's why I think it's good in advance, not for you not to write it down, not for you not to wish for it and want for it and hope for it, But in the end of the day, if it's not there, but everything that you need for him to be the father and the husband are there, okay. These are the problems, and everyone has some flaws. Feel free, by the way, and I know so we're not used to really doing the Zoom format, please feel free to talk or send a chat, or if you'd like to be a personal private chat that nobody knows is coming from you, you could just send the chat to me as versus to the whole group. And then I'll respond to the question without saying who sent it out. Something else that I know we've spoken about, but I wanted to get a little more detailed in is, because again, I just keep seeing this flying in the faces of so many couples I talk to. Anything that perhaps, maybe, possibly could be controversial, please discuss in advance. Like, do we save money? Do we spend money? How much do we give to charity? What percentage? Do we need money in the bank or not? Do we need savings or not? All those things could be meaningless to you, but if they're very meaningful to the other person, your version of meaningless conflicts with his version of meaningful, we've got problems. So talk about it in advance. Possessions. What's your perspective on them? You need a lot, you need a little, you don't like a lot, you like a lot, you want it. Your ultimate dream is to live in Eretz Yisrael. You never want to leave Chicago. You never want to stay in Chicago. Like all of these things really, really, really should be discussed in advance, because if they're not, they can lead to such friction and such unneeded stress, because you could have discussed it in advance. How much money do you spend on mitzvahs? To what degree do you believe in being honest? Any area you can envision people arguing over. That's the basic point. Big issues like philosophy on raising children, relating to difficult in-laws, religious observance, internet, media. I mean, we went through a list at one point, because I know we gave like a class and a half on reasons why people get divorced. But anything that you know of, that you hear, that could possibly be a spot that it could lead to tremendous rift between people, talk about it in advance. You don't have to agree with everything. You just have to be compatible. Or either one of you could change. Now, when you're going out, it's fine to change. It's fine to shift. But not when you're married. You can't go into a marriage thinking then he's going to change. That doesn't work that way. Again, so people could have a certain vision and they could change their vision. We could be upfront and change our vision when we're going out. When you're married, this is the vision. You know, you accepted him. This is his vision. This is what he is. I know I shared this in different contexts, discussing this quite a while ago, so I'll share it again. When I was going out, the man I ended up marrying, today my husband for many, many years, shared with me that his vision of a woman was like his mother and like several other women that he had, you know, mother-like figures he had experienced in his yeshiva years, and all of them were like amazing women that were staying home and absolutely devoted to the house and the kitchen and, you know, balabastas and, you know, all that awesome stuff. And I said, you know, that's not me. It's nice. It's not me. You know, if that's what you want, we're going in the wrong direction here. So I guess, I didn't ask him, but I guess he thought about it and decided he was going to shift his vision. So it's fine to shift your vision. It's fine to shift your vision, as long as that's what you're doing in advance. But once you're there and you knew that was a vision and you never said anything, like let's rewind that conversation. Let's say my person I was going out with at that time had said this vision of the woman that stays at home and takes care of the house and the children and everything's so clean and balabatish. And I was just thinking, because I was like scared to say anything different because I didn't want to lose him. And then suddenly we're married, and then I'm me and he's him, and like, what's going on? That's not fair. That's not what I signed up for. And then there could be tremendous, tremendous, tremendous friction or pain or stress. That's not necessary. He could be wonderful enough for you, but don't pretend to be something you're not, because in the end of the day, you're both going to pay the price. Something else when you're going out, don't speak to a lot of people. Of course, there's a tendency for a lot of people to ask you questions because everyone that knows you're going out is going to ask you questions. So it could be your sisters, it could be your sister-in-laws, your cousins, your friends, whoever's your social network that knows what's going on, or even that doesn't know but assuming. Speak to your parents. Speak to the woman we've mentioned several times, that mysterious person who's going to be your, as we call it, mashpia figure, the person that's mentoring you through this process. And that's it. Not your brothers, not your brother-in-laws, that's it. Golden rule of thumb. The more people you speak with, the more problems come up. Why? Nature of man. So just keep it very private. Speak to your parents. Again, if you have that relationship with parents, that age and stage where you're going to speak to your parents. If you are not at that age and stage, but your parents are going to get upset if you don't speak to them, speak to them anyway. You don't have to share with them everything, but you don't want them upset with you, because that also could create negative energy in the shidduch. So at least as much as is necessary, or tremendously speak to your parents and speak to the mentor, and that's it. Any questions? Any thoughts on any of this? Okay. So bringing Hashem in, finding, I'm not gonna say selecting, finding the right person is really a miracle. I mean, he's there. I promise you he's there. Before you were born, it was already destined. But it sometimes feels like, I know he's somewhere, but where is he? So we really need Hashem's help in this. And even on the very practical basis, you're going out with a lot of guys, but you don't really know what you are. You for sure have no clue what he is. You probably don't know what you need, and you definitely don't know what life has in store for you. So you take all those unknown variables, how in the world are you supposed to know who you should marry? You don't know what you are. You don't know what you need. Even if you did, you really don't know who he is. And even if you knew all that, it's so much dependent on what life is going to throw you, what qualities are really necessary for you in your future life. So how do you pick the right one? It's truly, truly a miracle. And also, just to throw more monkey wrenches into this challenge, people change so dramatically after they get married. Even if you thought you had him down pat and you thought you had yourself down pat, you will both change tremendously by virtue of being married. Hopefully only in positive directions. I've seen it in both with people. But you'll both tremendously change after you're married. So how in the world do you pick the right one? So that's where we need what we call siyata deshmaya, which is an Aramaic term. Aramaic is very similar to Hebrew. So siyata is like the Hebrew word siyua, and deshmaya, di is that, and shamaya is like the Hebrew word shamayim. The siyua of shamayim, the help of heaven, siyata deshmaya. That's what you want to bring into the whole time you're going out. Lots and lots and lots of Hashem's involvement to guide you. Like I always give people the bracha and daven when my own children are going out. I'm not davening ever that's the right one. That seems to me a very silly tefillah. I daven that should be clear. And I never rely on my sons. So I always daven that the girls should know, because I know my sons will never know. So I always daven the girls should know, and she should know. If it's wrong, she should know. If it's right, she should know. I don't trust my sons one drop. I think girls are much more intuitive than men in all these things. So what can you do to bring siyata deshmaya into the time when you are going out? There are many things you could do, but as I understand it, the most relevant and therefore important thing you can do is work on your own tznius. Work on your own adherence to the laws of modesty as much as you can, and definitely improving from how you normally are. You could say, but I'm perfectly 100%, unbelievable. Top collar, bone, buttons. I don't know. And if you wanted practical suggestions, you could speak to me privately later. All I can say is, as I've seen in my own life, however good you are, there's always room for improvement. Again, if you can't figure out your room for improvement, you can ask someone else, you can ask me, you can ask your friends. There's ask. someone who would know the laws, there's always room for improvement. And that movement of improving specifically your tznius is really special, because what you're doing in essence is taking a mitzvah that has relevance to the essence fabric of marriage. Tznius is tied into marriage, to what's going on between the husband and the wife. Now, that doesn't mean you can't improve in many other areas. You want to improve in your kosher, you want to improve in your Shabbos, you want to give more tzedakah, you want to say extra tehillim, you want to say Shir Hashirim 10 times. It's all good. It's all godly. It's all good. But I'm saying, overarching, the best place to move is in your tznius, because that has to do with the essence marriage. You really want to take on that commitment of being committed to all of God's laws about marriage. But if you're single, you're not keeping any of the laws because you're single. So what can you do that most approximates keeping the laws of marriage? Tznius. And that's why each person should look at themselves honestly. You don't have to do this today if you don't want, but at least when you're going out. I think, how do I take what's good and perfect and make it even better? Or if it's not so good and not so perfect, how can I add? Froma, did you have a question?
Yeah, what about for men? Like, is their thing also tznius, or is it something else?
It would depend on the man and where he's holding. If you're talking about a religious man or a not religious man or a sort of religious man, like if a man was, sort of, not really strong, I'd say the most important thing would be tefillin, because that really expresses the man's identity as a man and in the relationship. That the tefillin the man puts on helps not only himself, it helps his wife, it helps his children. So again, for some men, of course, that's a no-brainer, that's a no issue. We look to other things. But for some men, that is something they do need to focus on. And that therefore will be, to me, the first thing you want to make sure, if you are helping a man, is very solid. But for a woman is very much responsible for bringing God into the home, for the level of refinement of the home, for the level of sensitivity to God in the home. And a lot of that has to do with the tznius of the woman. So,
Okay,
sure. Anyone else? I know it's not easy, because if we think we do everything right, when in the world are we supposed to add in? And if we think we're not doing everything right, it seems sort of overwhelming, and I'm not really interested. I'd rather, say a few extra chapters of Tehillim. I'm not telling you not to say extra chapters of Tehillim. I just believe very strongly that tznius is the best way. It's sort of like, I'll give you a mushal. It'd be sort of like, let's say someone wanted God to have them win the lottery. And they would say to Hashem, if you have me win the lottery, I'll give so much to tzedakah. I'll give 20% to tzedakah. No, I'll give 25% to tzedakah. I'll give 30% to tzedakah. I'll give 30% to tzedakah. And you walk around thinking, why does Hashem give me the lottery? I'm pledging 30% to tzedakah. And Hashem could say, beautiful. So why aren't you giving 30% now? So you don't have the lottery. So you earned $30 today. So put $10 down for tzedakah. That was your commitment. If you're not doing it now, why would I trust you're going to do it then? So when a person is wanting to get married and they're trying to bring Hashem in, you're saying the essence marriage is going to be infused with you. How do I most express that now? With my tznius. And that's why tznius is a very important thing. On a super practical level, going to the other extreme, just it's really not tied into what I'm saying, but just since we're talking about tznius, I know that some girls feel it's not so important for me to be so tznius now. Maybe I'm not so tznius. That's okay. I'm not looking for a boy that's so tznius either. So it's a good shidduch. And the little fact they might forget is that even for boys that aren't so tznius, a lot of times the one looking for the shidduch is not him but his mother. And the mothers, very honestly, very unrealistically, are looking for very tznius girls, even though their sons are not very tznius. And there's so many things I've seen along these lines. So many, if you will, if I want to use the term, I'll call it a double standard. I don't know if I should use that term, but just between me and the people I'm talking to tonight, I'll call it a double standard. That even if a boy is not especially tznius in his behaviors, very often he's looking for a girl who is. Dina?
Hi, Mrs. Turin.
Hi.
I wanted to ask, when you say tznius, do you mean just in terms of like presentation and clothing, or also like in terms of thought and action and other things?
I mean, most specifically, well, there's really two levels to tznius, so thank you for bringing that out. There's two parts of the mitzvah that I was referring to, and both are necessary. One is the bottom line halacha, because you're showing Hashem you're committing to keeping the halachos of marriage, which in my life today is most expressed in the laws of tznius. So that would be the bottom line. If the tznius there means your collarbone is covered and your elbows are covered, if the tznius means you get dressed in the bathroom, if the tznius means certain words you do not say, you know, all of those things that are just, I'm committed to your vision of what life is supposed to look like. And then there's another factor, which I just touched on, I think when I was responding to Firma's question, which is the idea of the bringing Hashem in, you know, wanting Hashem to be in your home, to be in your marriage, to be in your family. Now, obviously, when you're married and you learn and study and keep the laws of marriage, this is very much to bring Hashem in and to make this a place where Hashem's welcomed. So for yourself now as a single person, the more you refine yourself, the more refinement you have, which could be refinement in terms of what media you allow yourself to look at, you know, what thoughts you allow yourself to think, what word choices. We're not talking about bad words, of course not, but in terms of the permissible words, what words you use to say, that's talking about a whole higher level of like making yourself godly, making yourself refined, making yourself a person where Hashem's presence is so natural and welcomed, that he's so comfortable because there's so much room for him. It's such a natural environment for him. So both levels I really meant. I mean, you know, in other words, if I just overwhelm people, that sounded really strange. You can stick to level one, and that's amazing. And if you're striving for more, you could ascend to what I was just saying to Dina, as ways of really looking for creating an environment that's sacred, that has sanctity. And that's something that, you know, welcomes Hashem's presence.
So I have another question. You know how people say like if you're getting married or like you want to get married, you should get like a sheitel or a gartel for your husband. So what if you like, I guess, is it like okay to take kala classes, like to learn the laws on that, or is that like?
That's a great question. It's been asked to me more than once and more than, you know, it's especially when a girl is already getting older. I've heard that question. Like, I want to prepare. I want to use this as a keli to prepare. I want to do it right. I don't want to, you know, I want to already have it under my belt because then I'll be busy. It's a school. I've heard all of the above. My personal opinion is no, because traditionally it was viewed as something you only learn when you are engaged. I do know, because I've had this conversation with a number of girls, where they'll say, well, Rabbi so-and-so said it's fine. So I'm like, fine, so speak to Rabbi so-and-so. What are you asking me for? You know, if there's a Rav you're speaking to, and the Rav you ask, or it doesn't be a Rav you're speaking to, the Rav you ask any other shaila of, you can ask this as a shaila. And if he says it's fine, your age, your stage, perfectly fine, then go for it. I'm just, I guess, a little conservative in that, because I know traditionally it was viewed as something you are not supposed to learn until you're engaged. But again, I have been told by girls when they ask me this question that Rabbi so-and-so says it's fine. So if there's some Rabbi so-and-so that says it's fine and he happens to be your Rav, then you know, then it's fine. Like in many things in life, if we have a Rav we follow and he's an authentic Orthodox Rav, then we're kosher. You know, if he's making a mistake, it's his issue, so to speak. But we're kosher, and we trust, again, siyata d'shmaya, that we'll be guided by him to go in the right way. But that is an excellent question, because it definitely comes up realistically to many girls at certain points in their marriage, at certain points when they're going out. Any other questions on this? Dina, do you have another question, or your hand is still raised from the first one?
Sorry about that. My hand was just raised. I forgot to turn it off.
No problem. I always sometimes wonder that. Going back to the practical, so I'm talking to you about tznius in terms of the best road to siyata d'shmaya that I know. That is not knocking all the other roads. I know there are people that are very religious and they give 18, a denomination of 18 every day, 18 cents, 18 whatever, $1.80. Beautiful. People say Tehillim, Perkat Shira, Shir Shirim, 40 days. I mean, I'm not taking away anything. It's all good. It's all godly. It's wonderful. I'm telling you, in my opinion, this is the most important thing you should be doing. But if you want to do the other stuff also, it's fine. And if you're doing the other stuff and you should want to keep doing it, it's fine. I'm just suggesting that I think this is the most important one, but doesn't knock any of the others. And on the pragmatic basis, besides the mothers looking for the shidduchim, besides the double standards, it's also just very important to realize, and this is honestly, this is not the spiritual plug. This is just a very practical plug. Everything is so publicized and easily available to a horrific degree today. I mean, I'm sure you all know, over these past months with the riots, how many people lost their job because of a statement they said or posted, 10 years before. I'm sure we've all heard those horror stories, communist America. So similarly, every picture that goes up, every time your Facebook page, even though of course it's private, but whatever, every time you're tagged somewhere, it's all out there. It's all public record. I'm sure if you hear a name, one of the first things you do is Google. Look, search for a Facebook. Who are the friends? Who are this? Who are that? I mean, just the most obvious thing you're going to start looking at, just to see what feeling you get. So it's all there. It's all public. It's very hard to delete. No, I deleted it. You think you deleted it. You didn't really delete it. If someone's really searching, they can still find most of what you think you deleted. So obviously, circumspectly, try to make sure things are not posted online. If they are posted online, try to make sure they're only things that you're happy with being posted online. Because once it's online, it's out of your hands. Just like Facebook, it's sort of like out of your hands. I think I once saw someone saying something like, simple 79 steps to close down your Facebook account, so to speak. So that's more on the pragmatic level of like tznius, the lack of tznius, what's out there, and what's out there is basically out there forever. Basically.
Yeah, but it'd also be a good thing, like when you're going out, right? Like I turned down a guy because I looked on his Facebook and I was like,
Of course, but I just said that from I assume, and if not, you definitely should see what information you find out online about the person. Absolutely, but I'm saying the same way you turned down a guy because you saw what was on his Facebook page. Someone could be searching your name and find things not only on your Facebook, on other people's. You could be tagged in other places. There's just a lot of ways. Some of which you can control and a lot of which you can't control, besides always trying to look appropriate and be appropriate, and but it's there. Again, you could say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. That was 10 years ago, and if that's going to be judged against me, then I'm just trusting Hashem that the person that I'm supposed to marry, will never think of checking me online. And Hashgacha Pratis, he won't. Like we can't. The point isn't to make yourself crazy for whatever exists, and there's nothing you can do about it. The point is moving forward to be aware and be sensitive. Just like sometimes when people have weddings and they post all the pictures online. I mean, I'm not saying anything like unsneezed. Some of them are just sort of embarrassing. They're just not very flattering. They just don't look so nice. And I just post who's gonna look at my pictures besides people that I don't care about looking and seeing this. You'd never know. Honestly, you never know. Any other questions, thoughts, feelings on any of this? Again, I'm looking at the siyata d'shmaya end, bringing Hashem into the picture end, the halacha and the refinement, and on the practical end, and as Ron was saying, hey, you do it too. definitely do it too, and know they're doing it as well. Something else, totally different topic. No one has any other thoughts on this one. Very important when you're in the stage of going out to look at your strengths and look at your weaknesses. And understand that very often our strengths and weaknesses are the same. Also for the man, you know, what's his strength is probably going to be his weakness on some level. What his weakness hopefully is also his strength. So if you're a very emotional person, well, maybe you're more caring, you're more deep, you're more sensitive, but maybe that same trait makes you less confident, less sure of yourself. So really understand what you are, which helps you both understand what you need and understand maybe what you need to work on. Like, again, I know sometimes when you just want to get married already. And it's so like, oh my gosh, you know, when? But if you look at it like time to work, you know, it's interesting. I'm thinking in the Chumash, it says about Yaakov Avinu that when he first came at the ripe young age of 77, I believe, when he first actually saw Rachel, and he committed to working for her for 7 years. And the pasuk says, and I'm probably misquoting because I'm just thinking this now off the top of my head, "V'hayu yamim achadim ba'avaso oso," or something like that. And they were just a few days in his eyes because of his love for her. You could look it up to get the exact Hebrew, but that's the gist of the pasuk. It's a very perplexing pasuk. What do you mean? He's 77. He wants to get married. He wants to establish the 12 Shvatim. Those 7 years should have seemed forever. Doesn't make sense because he loved her so much. The 7 years were so short. Because he loved her so much, the 7 years have been so long. Practical question. I'm sure there are many answers, but one that resonated very much when I learned this however many years ago, I know it's just dinged in my brain right now, is he saw how much work he had to do. He's like, oh my gosh, in 7 years I'm going to be married. You know, when I'm 84, am I going to be ready? Okay, I've spent my entire life working on myself, but I've only 7 years left, and I'm supposed to establish Klal Yisrael now. So I got so much to do. So when he was so focused on all the work involved, it seemed like a blink of an eye, and there went those 7 years. Which is a very interesting parish if you think of it in terms of yourselves in the process of going out. That sometimes it could feel like, oh my gosh, nothing's happening, and just another day and another day and another day. If you could turn it around and feel like, what's the work I need to do? And focus on the work, making it productive time, then it doesn't seem so dragging. It seems like, wow, I'm really accomplishing, and I've got a lot to accomplish. So I have to like grab the moments. If you feel like you have to grab the moments, you don't feel like that lady in waiting, so to speak. And sometimes if you're really not ready, you're going to keep sabotaging the process. And I've definitely seen this with people that officially they want to get married. They really think they want to get married. It just doesn't happen. But if you really analyze what's going on when they go out, they literally sabotage themselves. And sometimes it's because on a certain level, they're not ready. And they're not dealing with those pieces of themselves that are not ready yet. And that's why they just keep, shoving that under the carpet, under the rug, and keep going out. But it's not going anywhere. Because inside there's still some work they have to do to resolve whatever traumas or childhood issues or things about their parents' relationship, whatever it is that's holding them back from being really, really ready. Sometimes a person just doesn't have the self-confidence, and then they just really need to ask themselves, well, what do I need to do that would really make me believe in myself? And then go out and do it, just to really shift that around, to escape that sense of like not really believing in yourself. Because again, if you don't believe in yourself, sometimes you give off energy that implies you're not worthy enough, which either attracts the wrong man or sends away the right man. So maybe that's the work I need to do, and then do it. Sometimes in general, and this is more applicable for people that are getting older. Now, a girl could be 22 and feel she's getting older. I don't really mean 22-year-olds when I say that. but everyone has their own vision of what I mean by older. But if someone has been going out and going out and going out and going out, and depends when you started and how old you are and how often you're going out and how much is priority, but you feel you're getting older. So you could be 25 and feel you're getting older. You could be 29 and feel you're getting older. You could be 35 and feel you're getting older. Whatever point when it hits you, you really need to ask yourself, is there something I need to shift? As if envisioning, is it that I'm not ready yet? And when I'll be ready, so will he. You know, it's not happening because there's some work I still need to do. I really ask that question. You could consult with that mentor we mentioned earlier, or someone else that knows you very well. It doesn't have to be per se your mentor for marriage, but someone who knows you and you believe has wisdom in this area. Is there work I still need to do? And that's the problem. If you can't come up with anything along those lines, you can ask yourself, do I have, like as I was mentioning before, do I have an inner psychological block? Is there some block to marriage inside of me? And that's what's stopping me. I've definitely seen a number of people who were sure they didn't have the block, but actually, of course, did. So do I have a block? And you know, again, what I've been through, traumas, experiences in my past, seeing marriages that didn't seem happy to me, that made me fearful of marriage, experiences I've had that made me fearful of marriage. Do I have some such traumas inside of me or some unfinished business inside of me? That's like a psychological barrier that's not allowing me to move forward. I want to get married officially. I think I want to get married. I'm confident I want to get married, but maybe there's a piece of me that's scared and doesn't. And dealing with that. Is there a piece of me I need to strengthen to be able to be married? Is there a piece of me I need to shift to be ready? Is there something in me I need to overcome in myself? Like to really, really probe deeply. And again, I'm not saying if you're 21 and you've been going out since you're 19, you need to ask yourself all these introspective questions. But if you're at the point where it seems like you feel already like older and doing this for a long time and it's not moving forward, then that'd be the time to really ask, do I have unhealed relationships with my parents, with my father, with my mother, with both? And that's a blockage. You know, where is that blockage energy? Is there someone upset with me? Is there some, as we've spoken of the term kapeda, is there some negative energy on me because someone's upset, because I hurt someone knowingly or unknowingly? And that's the blockage. That's what's not allowing me to move forward. And if so, how do I refine that? How do I make amends? How do I apologize? How do I protect myself for the energy or remove that energy? Again, these are the types of questions you ask yourself when you're already getting older and it's not moving and you just can't figure out why. No real reason inside of you that you shouldn't have been snatched up a long time ago. Not a reason that you're aware of. So what's going on? On the other hand, when you're going out, don't settle in significant areas. No, you're great. This is your husband. This is for life. This is the most important choice you're ever going to make in your life, much more important than your home, which is probably the most important financial decision you're ever going to make, or your car, or your career, what you're going to major in college. This is your husband. This is your life. So you really want to choose wisely. You don't want to feel pressured, and you don't want to feel you have to compromise. Now, again, I said before, I'm not schizophrenic. I said before that, you know, nobody's perfect, nobody's perfect, nobody's perfect. I'm not changing my mind. What I mean is don't compromise on what's essential. Remember, I said make two lists. The father, husband musts and all the nice perks. You could compromise on the perks. You could compromise on the frills, on what you would have liked, fantasized for. Of course, you're going to have to compromise. Most people do. But never feel pressure to compromise on what's essential in your eyes as a husband and as a father. Even if a person even if a person has big skeletons in their closet, you know, says, well, everyone's telling me I should just be grateful. They're willing to look at me because I've got this big demerit. I've got this slash against me. I've got that slash against me. I've got so many slashes against me. I've got so much stuff that's making it hard for me to find a shidduch at all. So I should just be grateful, you know, so he's willing to look at me, instead of saying, but he's not what I want. You know, everyone says, just get, even sometimes it comes to your age. At your age, you know, you're being so picky. That's a line I'm given over to me many times by girls I talk to that are older. At your age, you're being so picky. So not that the people that are saying this don't mean well. Of course they mean well. Of course they love you. Of course they care about you. But just ignore them. Because this is your husband. This is for life. And sometimes if you honestly say, listen, I mean, that's very nice, but I do have stuff in my family that will make a lot of people not interested in going out with me. I do have stuff in my personal life that will make a lot of people not interested in going out with me. Like, I've got to be realistic. That's true. So if that's true, and you have to be realistic, that doesn't take away knowing your strengths. It doesn't take away knowing your virtues, knowing your milos. And if you do feel you're going to have to, because of your skeletons, you have to settle for somebody else's skeletons, only settle for a skeleton that you're okay with. You can be okay with that one. Again, let me try to say what I'm saying very clearly, because I know this is very realistic for many, many, many people. Again, might not be for anyone here, but then if it's not for you, it'll be for a friend. If someone says, but so many people aren't interested in going out with me because of my family background, because of my own personal past background, because of my situation in life. I mean, that's reality. Reality is, you know, I can't get, you know, whatever, the greatest boy in Lakewood that's already been remarried countless times. Can't get him. It's not going to be in my ballpark of choices. Fine. That could be possible. But even in that situation, what to someone else could be a problem, to you isn't a problem. But know what to you is a problem. So don't compromise what to you is essential because you're told that you shouldn't have expectations of getting something better. Don't compromise what's essential, but you could compromise on things that aren't essential, but maybe would be viewed as chesroinus, as flaws. There's a very beautiful book that someone, a woman I learned with, this is her machatenista, so she shared with me the book. I think she just buys copies and distributes them, giving her machatenista some business. The title is A Life Notwithstanding. For anyone that thinks they have demerits that are making it hard for them to find a shidduch, it's very worthwhile, very humbling to read this book. Because this was a woman who, when she was, I don't remember how old, 3 or something like that, she contracted polio. This was maybe like 1950. And the polio vaccine had just come out, like literally that year. But, you know, it hadn't reached her yet. And her parents specifically took the children to the country, not that they had any money, but to avoid polio that, of course, breaks out in the city in the summer. And somehow, they were in a bungalow colony. She contracted. No one else in the entire bungalow colony got it, which makes no sense because it's very contagious. Just her. It was like the finger of God went just on her. Anyway, so she contracted polio, and because of that, she's confined to a wheelchair, you know, very little ability to control most of her body parts. A very intelligent woman, a very cultured woman, a very well-educated woman, a great personality, and she wanted to get married. And everyone's like, never, no way. Like, who in the world would marry you? She wanted to be married. And then she insisted she was get married, and people kept setting her up on dates with people like, hello, excuse me? Like, I don't know, I have a double PhD and you're setting up with this man who, like, works in the post office or whatever, those types of situations. And in the end, cutting short the book, in the end, she falls in love with this very, very handsome, cultured, intelligent man who's blind. And that's his skeleton, so to speak. But it was okay by her. And hers was okay by him. And neither felt they're settling. They just really felt very in love. It's very beautiful. It's very reassuring on that point that, like, he's out there. And maybe he does have something that everyone else would consider, like, really hard to deal with. But you should be okay with it. But on something that you're not okay with, you should not settle. Even if everyone's telling you have to settle. Even people just say, oh, even the most simple situation, what you're looking for doesn't exist. That's another common line people tell girls. He doesn't exist. What you want doesn't exist. He exists. He's out there. You'll find him. And never look at someone and think, well, he's not really what I wanted, but he'll change. It's very possible he'll change, but never get married assuming he's going to become more religious, he's going to become kinder, he's going to become more sensitive, he's going to become more focused on you. Never get married assuming those things will happen. They might happen, but don't get married on such an assumption. And if you if you get married in that perspective, it creates a lot of pain in a marriage. Any questions? Any questions on any of this? Any comments? Okay. The last thing just to talk about is make very sure that no one's upset with your shidduch. Now, there can be different people that can be upset with your shidduch. I mean, maybe a girl's upset with your shidduch because she wanted to marry that boy and you got him first. And she could be really upset with your shidduch and you might not even know about it. Or maybe you will. I was once speaking with a girl of, she was having all this crazy stuff going on in her life, like really crazy stuff. And I said to her, I don't know, is anyone upset with your marriage? She's like, upset with the marriage? And I said, I don't know, do some research. And she researched and she found, like, I don't know, 5, 6 people, like 3 of them that thought they were her shadchan and she'd never acknowledged, probably never knew about them as her shadchan, all this different crazy stuff. So you don't want to walk around with anyone upset with your shidduch. And what very often happens is the shadchan could be upset with you. And you never, ever, ever want the shadchan upset with you. Whoever thinks they're your shadchan, pay them. And that doesn't mean you have to give each one the going rate for a shadchan, which is between $700 to $1,000. You could buy them a gift. They think they're your shadchan because they thought of the shidduch. They never told you about it. How many, I can say when I got engaged, and I know it's very common. So many people came up to me afterwards and said, oh my God, I was thinking a year ago, I told someone you two would be such a great shidduch. So I'm thinking in my head, where were you? Why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell someone that could make it happen? What were you waiting for? But there's inevitably a lot of people like that around in the world. And they really think they're your shadchan. They said it to someone who maybe then did something that. So any of these people, give them a present. It doesn't have to be a very expensive present, but give them a present that they feel, all they just need to do is feel acknowledged, feel respected. Because what you don't want is them walking around upset with you because they thought of the idea. I mean, they did absolutely nothing, but they thought of the idea and you never acknowledge them. A nice card, something that acknowledges. It's very important that both sides pay the shadchan. So if the boy who's amazing, but his parents are not, it's very important that you make sure that both sides pay the shadchan. It's very important to pay the shadchan before you get married, before you're under the chuppah, the shadchan must be paid. I know for myself, it's like the first thing I do when my children get engaged is pay the shadchan. It's very, very important. It's very spiritually important that the shadchan is paid before you get married. If you're paying less than the normative rate, again, I mean, everybody maybe in their circles is slightly different. Some people on this call are in New York, some people are in California. find out what the going rate is in your area. Again, in my worldview, it's somewhere between 700 to it's basically about $1,000. But sometimes it's less. Sometimes it could be even as low as 700, depending on the situation. But if you're going to pay less than the normative price, because your parents are not paying anything and you've got to create the money from your own pocket because your parents' vision as you pay a shadchan $250 because they don't have the money, make sure the shadchan's okay with it. Make sure the shadchan isn't upset because a shadchan, I think, is one of those professions that they're not officially, it's sort of, I don't know if it's exactly like a mohel who literally is not allowed to give you a cost, but does have a figure in mind. So shadchanim generally, I mean, not some do, but many shadchanim don't say, this is my price, but they expect you to pay their price. And if for some reason you can't, try to find out what their price is. And for some reason you can't pay the price, make sure they're okay with it. Make sure they're not going to be upset with you. Sometimes you're not sure who really was the official shadchan. And who, I mean, of course, I should give everyone a gift, but who do I pay that $700 to $1,000 to? So I had a situation actually with one of my sons that I felt when he got engaged, there were 4 shadchanim involved. And of course, I knew it's really important to pay the shadchan. And I just wasn't sure who was the shadchan. I had the boy who suggested I had the woman who suggested the shidduch, which is the only reason why I even thought of the shidduch, because I respect this woman and I somewhat know her. But she was really suggesting it because of her son-in-law who suggested it. Actually, he was really only suggesting it because his parents were the father of the girl, but I whatever. We'll leave that on the side. So there's the son-in-law who I never spoke to, I actually did speak to. There's his mother-in-law who spoke to me. And then when the shidduch sort of seemed to be falling apart, there was the girl's mentor, the girl's mashpia, that between me and the mashpia, we put the shidduch back together. When the official shadchan thought the whole thing was finished and was probably pretty surprised when they got engaged. There was a girl who originally thought of the idea, who had actually approached me about a year before about the shidduch, and I said no to it. Whatever, there were 4 parties, and I wasn't sure, who do I pay? So you don't have to follow the details of my story. I just want you to know what I did. So what I did was what you're supposed to do. I asked a Rav, and the Rav told me, and I followed what the Rav said. Again, I don't think it's so important to know the details of the answer, but just in case someone in a similar situation, he said basically the mother-in-law and son-in-law were one agency. Either the mother-in-law is acting for the son-in-law or the son-in-law is acting for the mother-in-law, so view them as one entity. The mashpia mentor is another entity. And the girl who originally thought of it, you have absolutely no obligation for because she wasn't involved. But I did send her a gift because, not only because I was scared, and not really because I was thinking, oh, I don't want her bad feelings because she's not that type of person, but because I did feel, hey, it really was her idea initially. But I'm saying you have to be that careful. And that's why I'm sharing it. You have to be that careful. And you can think, oh my gosh, my shidduch is not going to be so complicated, but you never know. If there's more than one person that thinks they're your shadchan, ask a Rav who really gets the money. And anyone who thinks they're your shadchan on any level, get them something that's your way of acknowledging how they helped you in the shidduch. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but give them that acknowledgement. What if a shadchan worked very hard for a shidduch that didn't work out, as happens very often? You are technically, in most cases, under absolutely no obligation to pay them. Meaning some shadchanim want to be paid up front for their work, if it works out or not, and then you paid them already. But if a shadchan doesn't ask to be paid up front, then you don't owe them anything because shadchanim is a type of business where you only make money if it works out, like many other businesses. So from the letter of the law, from the business angle, you don't owe them anything. Could they be upset at you because they worked and worked and worked and the shidduch didn't work out? I wouldn't really worry about it. I mean, not if they're a professional shadchan, for sure not. If they're like more a friend, then maybe. If they're a professional shadchan, this is their business, and it happens plenty of times. But a really menschlich person would give something anyway. I'm not saying you have to, and you don't have to. But if someone really worked hard for a shidduch, I worked hard. They spent hours trying to make the shidduch happen, and in the end, it did it. Nothing to do with them, obviously. It did it. They were amazing. If only he was as amazing. It's nice to give them something. It's just it's being a mensch. It's nice. Again, it's not necessary, but it's sort of menschlich. Something else in terms of shadchanim and money is that you really want two qualities in a shadchan. Two qualities that are often very difficult to find, but this is the world of theory. You want someone who's energetic, and you want someone who cares about you. Maybe they don't personally know you, but they care about your family. They're a friend of your father. They're a friend of your mother. They're a good friend of your grandmother. It's best to find someone who cares about you. But even someone who cares about you might not be able to do that much because they're not energetic. So you really, ideally, are looking for both qualities. If you say, well, I'm never going to find someone that cares about me because nobody knows me. Nobody knows my parents. We're nobodies. We're nothings. Nobody knows us. Nobody cares about us. Then at least look for someone who's very energetic.
Wait, I have a question.
Sure.
Both of those things seem ridiculously unattainable.
Okay.
It's a nice idea, but I
They're
find
not speaking in the world of theory.
well, it's a nice idea, and a lot of things that I find are good ideas, and then in practicality, I'm surprised at just how well it doesn't work. But in this regard, I find that you need to find a shadchan based off of who knows guys that you might be shaykh for, and more often than ever, I've always found shadchanim who might be enthusiastic, but they don't know me, and they don't necessarily spend that much time to get to know me, but also that when they're enthusiastic, I get worried. I have a shadchan who's been so enthusiastic about setting him up with these guys who, not one of them has been right for me. Yes, my rabbi had to have a whole long conversation with her about what I was looking for. So enthusiastic, but how would you go about finding someone who is enthusiastic in the right way?
I'm really glad you asked that question because I want to clarify what I said. I didn't use the word enthusiastic. I agree with you. It's sort of like if I started with a dentist, I'm used to a dentist who, whenever you want an appointment, it's so hard, and maybe there's something available in 3 weeks. And then I start with a dentist who's like, oh, sure, yeah, you can come in today. Oh, today doesn't work? What time tomorrow would you like to come? And it got me really nervous. Like, is no one else going to this dentist? Why do they have so many openings available? That felt weird. So I understand what you mean by too much enthusiasm feels like scary. Like, am I the only girl that's ever approached this person, that they have like 5 desperate men that they're going to throw at me? I didn't say enthusiastic. I understand what you mean by enthusiastic. And I understand actually your fears of enthusiastic. I said energetic. What I mean by energetic, which maybe sounds like enthusiastic, but I mean something very different. What I mean by energetic means someone that's going to work on it. Now, like, I'll give you a practical, I'm not saying this is what you should do, but there was a girl, she wasn't so old, and she didn't have any real issues. I don't remember how old she was. Maybe she was 23, 24, 25, it was only along that ballpark. She wasn't married. And she had an uncle who had a lot of money, and I don't think he ever got married or he had no kids, but he had a lot of money and he cared about her. And he put out there, he just put it out. It spread in the network of shadchanim. Whoever finds the shidduch for my niece is going to get a very large sum. He quoted a very large sum. Someone I know was a lucky shadchan that made the match. That's why I know about it. And she said she was such a nice girl. It was like, it wasn't like she had any issues. It didn't happen yet. But guess what? She worked very energetically for her. She had high motivation. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should do that. Obviously, like you have necessarily the big bucks to put a very big prize on your head. But how do you find energetic? So to me, what I look for in energetic, and I agree with you, it's a rare quality. I totally agree with you, is just what's the name I hear of the person making a lot of shidduchim, who seems to be like really actively succeeding. And of course, speaking to people like what was the experience like with the shadchan? And did the shadchan work hard for you? That's what I call energetic. Did they work for you? Did they work hard for you? Unfortunately, some shadchan, if you call them professional shadchanim, they'll say, give me a name and I'll approach them. Give me a name. I'm asking you. Or conversely, you'll call a professional shadchan and they'll send you 12 resumes. You're sending me 12 resumes? To me, that's almost like not giving me a name. 12 resumes means you have no clue. You just opened up your database and dumped a bunch of resumes in my inbox.
I have one person who actually did that. She sent me 25 guys. They were all on the East Coast and I was on the West Coast. I was like, that's great.
I think this was 12, but it was a while ago. But I remember when I looked at the 12, I didn't look at any of them. Because to me, if you're sending me 12, it's like you're sending me nothing. It was like so irrelevant in my head. So just use starting with dabbling with a shadchan. You hear a good reputation about a shadchan, and you call them and they say, if you have a name, I'll approach them for you. You know that's not what you're looking for. Or if you reach out to a shadchan and they send you 25 resumes, let alone on the wrong coast, you know that's not what you're looking for. Honestly, the best thing is really someone that knows you, who's made a few shidduchim, who likes to make shidduchim. You know, there's all those people out there that like to make shidduchim, and that knows you personally. That's much more valuable than a professional shadchan. Much more valuable. I don't know what percentage of shidduchim nowadays are made by what we call friends and not professional shadchanim, but many. Again, I'm not saying don't go to professional shadchanim, but I'm saying, even though, and I agree with Maya, they are rare, but if they care about you, if they know your family, or if you can't find anyone that knows your family, so you're gonna have to drop that end of the qualifications, at least someone that's energetically working. So going back to this shadchan that you found, the best of the bunch, it's a nice idea to give them a down payment. Like, again, let's say in your circles, the going rate is $1,000, because that's like generally what it is nowadays. Sometimes it's less. Sometimes if it's an unofficial shadchan, you pay less, whatever. But let's say an unofficial shadchan generally is about $1,000. And you found someone who maybe they don't know you, but they definitely have a reputation for being energetic. They definitely are going to work hard on it. And you give them a down payment. You give them $150, $180. Now here it gets a little sticky sometimes. You could tell them, I mean, because this is really the concept, this is a down payment for the shidduch you're going to make, you know, whatever the going rate is. I'm already giving you part of the money now. But if my shidduch was made by someone else, I would want the money back, because it's a lot of money, but I'm already giving you this down payment now to like sort of start the process. So it's always a little dangerous in that, because if you do, Emir Hashem, get engaged with someone else, sometimes the person's not going to give back the money. They just don't. And you, like, there's not much you could do at that point. You know, I'm not judging. Sometimes you're not going to get your money back. Sometimes you feel uncomfortable asking, and sometimes you feel comfortable asking, but you're just not going to get your money back. So some people would say they're not going to do it because they don't want to lose the money. So maybe give less. Don't give 180, don't give 150, give 100. Again, it doesn't mean the shadchan is going to make your match, but it's psychological. It's a psychological tool that makes them feel like they owe you. Even though in the end you're going to pay them $1,000, and since you gave them this $100 deposit, you're going to only pay $900, so you're not paying more. And you're telling them up front you do want it back if you get married through someone else. But it's sort of like a psychological pressure on an ehrlich, on an honest person. Some people are not so honest, but on an honest person, it does create a pressure in them to find you a shidduch, which is what you want, which is why you're giving them the money. So that technique sometimes works. But again, the best thing, more than an official shadchan, is someone who cares about you, or someone who cares about your parents, your family, your grandparents. Someone who cares, because someone who cares will often, first of all, they'll often do more than a shadchan, and what's maybe more valuable, again, people can be foolish sometimes, but you often more trust their recommendations. I will say for my first daughter-in-law, Baruch Hashem just had their third recently, and she's a wonderful, wonderful person. Why did I even look in her direction? Because a friend of mine suggested her. I didn't know that meant she was the right person for my son, but I knew it meant she was a good person, because I knew my friend wouldn't suggest someone who's not a good person. So there is a certain value in the friend because they care about you, and because you know that the recommendations they're going to make are going to be good people, and because you know that the person they're going to speak to on the other side will also listen to them more. Which leads to one final point. Let's say you really want to go out with Mr. Rabbi Buffer X. But you know there's probably another 50 girls that want to go out with him. So instead of contacting a shadchan, it's good to think. This takes a little bit of research work, but it's a very powerful tool. It's good to think, who knows me or my family and knows them well, that if that person spoke, they would listen. This actually happened with me. I'm saying with this shidduch, I was saying for my son, where in the end I was wondering which of the four will the real shadchan please step forward. The only reason, it was very funny, you know, when this shidduch was suggested, there were like, I don't know how many other girls that we were officially sort of had a list we're going to look into. I was just sort of overwhelmed and had a lot of other things going on in my life. But there was this girl, another son of mine had suggested someone, and someone else had suggested someone. And I had all these people that I was sort of tried to figure out who I was going to look into. And then this woman called me about this other girl. Now, why did I pay a lot of attention to her? Because I really respect her. Because I respect her. If you want to say she's a friend of mine or someone I respect, someone that's, you know, a very, very good person. So I knew, like when she was talking, I was listening. And because I was listening, I prioritized her, and therefore my son went out with her, and in the end, we got married. And I remember it was very funny because when my son was going out, my other son, you know, the one who had some other girl that he was trying to push me to look into, and I just could never be bothered looking into her. I remember he literally said this. He said, "How did this one jump the line?" Like, you know, how did this one jump the line? So honestly, you know, God runs the world, but how she jumped the line was because of the person who suggested her to me. Because that person I paid attention to. So I'm just giving you my personal story to embellish the point that you would like the person representing you, and it's usually very case specific. You know, it's not carte blanche. This is the person all people listen to. I mean, sometimes it is, but it could be in this specific case for this specific family. This would be the person that somebody would listen to. This would be the person they would listen to. So I'm going to ask them to be the shadchan in this case. Again, you might say, I don't know anyone like that, and I'm not from that world that knows people and has connections and can even figure out who in this family they will be interested in. You know, like it might not be something that's relevant to you, but if it is relevant, it's a very, very wise tool. Everything is in Hashem's hands, but it's a wise tool to try to create shidduchim. Any questions, thoughts on any of that? Okay, well, we're a mere 16 minutes after I wanted to end. So sorry for the little bit of overtime. If anyone, again, is not on our WhatsApp group and would like to be on it so you get reminded, you can just send me up a chat, or if you know Malki's number, you could directly ask her to put you on the group. And thank you so much for joining. Mirza Hashem, it should happen for everyone smoothly, easily, and in its right time, which we all assume means yesterday. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.